All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something called the subtraction life and figuring out how to actually find abundance in a world of total excess. We're going to go on a journey together that challenges one of modern society's most deeply ingrained habits, and that is, you guessed it, the endless pursuit of just having more.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We live in an era where success is almost always defined by addition, right? More money, more possessions, more status. But what if we've got the equation entirely backwards? To really understand this, let's look at a fascinating philosophical anchor from a devotional by Pastor Hugh Chi-Chiang. He highlights this incredibly famous quote from the biblical book of Matthew. "Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow, they neither toil nor spin." Now, when Jesus spoke these words centuries ago, he was talking to a crowd of everyday people. Many of them were day laborers, people who probably literally only owned a single piece of clothing. Their anxiety about basic survival was incredibly real, and it was immediate. By pointing out the wild lilies, the message was meant to just instantly disrupt that anxiety, redirecting their focus to the natural world as evidence of a universe that actually provides.
And what's really fascinating here is the stark, honestly kind of shocking juxtaposition the source draws. On one side, you have King Solomon. Now, in the ancient world, Solomon was the absolute peak of human wealth, power, and luxury. Just imagine the finest, most intricately woven royal robes, dyed with the most expensive colors available at the time. Then, on the other side, you have a simple, common wildflower just growing on a dusty hillside in Galilee. The observation here is profound. All of human effort, all of our sweating, toiling, spinning, and spending to create the ultimate symbol of status, well, it still falls completely short of the quiet, effortless beauty of a simple flower that just exists. Now, here's where it gets really mind-blowing. This brilliantly illustrates a point that ancient people couldn't even fully appreciate, but we can today. When we take that simple wildflower and put it under a modern microscope, the level of intricate design, the play of light, shadow, and cellular geometry is absolutely astonishing. It reveals a complex beauty that completely outpaces anything humans can artificially engineer. I mean, the flower doesn't have an anxiety-ridden design team, right? It doesn't have a strict manufacturing deadline. It simply grows. This microscopic reality really reinforces that original message. Nature's effortless design is vastly superior to our most stressful, laborious human efforts.
Well, this brings us to a really interesting theological framework presented in our source material. The text contrasts two very different ways humans interact with the environment today. On the one hand, it observes that some modern, radical green policies can sometimes elevate nature to the status of an idol, something to be worshipped purely for its own sake. But on the other hand, the devotional offers a different lens. It views the natural world not as a deity itself, but as a beautiful, intentional gift. In this framework, the incredible complexity of nature we just talked about isn't an accident. It's more like a mirror reflecting the care of a higher creator. Now, we aren't here to endorse a specific worldview, but understanding this perspective is absolutely crucial because it explains why the author finds such deep, grounding peace in the natural world.
So, let's actually ground these ancient and theological ideas into some modern physical geography. Pastor Hu records his reflections from Hualien, Taiwan, and let me tell you, it is a stunningly beautiful place. It's uniquely situated right between the towering peaks of the Central Mountain Range and the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean. It's actually the very first place the morning sun hits the island. Because of this majestic landscape, it attracts a ton of ecotourism. The pastor highlights a super popular phrase used by hikers and travelers out there: leave nothing but footprints, take nothing but photos. It's such a wonderful, practical application of the ancient text we started with. It teaches us to just exist in the presence of beauty without this overwhelming compulsion to consume it, harvest it, or hoard it. And this beautifully mirrors our own internal struggles. Let's shift from the breathtaking mountains of Taiwan back to the messy reality of our modern daily lives. We all work hard, we earn a salary, and then we have to make choices. The text draws a hard, bright line between needs and wants. Needs are the baseline. They're the essential items required for survival and basic well-being. Wants, however, wants are infinite. They are the endless desires driven by consumerism, social media, and that exhausting competitive rat race for the newest brand name item. The trap here is that when we confuse our wants with our needs, we completely lose our peace. Now, you might be wondering, does this mean we're supposed to just punish ourselves? The source definitely isn't advocating for some extreme, deprived life of absolute frugality where you just sit in an empty room. Actually, scratch that. It's more like a highly intentional, balanced life approach built on 4 key pillars. First, maintain faith, or, a grounded perspective. Second, Act with wisdom when managing your resources. Third, practice self-control. And fourth, never exceed your actual capabilities. Basically, don't go into crushing debt trying to finance a lifestyle designed just to impress other people. You are absolutely allowed to have wants for sure, but they must be carefully selected, not just blindly accumulated. Okay, so how do we practically execute this? History actually offers a brilliant framework through the rise of Japanese minimalism. It starts way back in 1976, when a man named Masahiro Oki introduced these concepts that were deeply rooted in yoga philosophy. In the years that followed, one of his disciples, Hideko Yamashita, took these concepts and started promoting them as a global lifestyle framework. Fast forward to 2010, and this wasn't just some niche philosophy anymore. It literally exploded into a mainstream Japanese buzzword and even became a registered trademark, sparking a massive global decluttering movement. That famous buzzword is Dan-sha-ri. Let's break down exactly what this means, because it perfectly operationalizes all those high-level spiritual concepts we've been discussing. Dan-sha-ri is a minimalist philosophy with 3 very distinct actions. Dan means refusing the unnecessary right at the front door, literally stopping the inflow of junk. Sha means disposing of the excess that has already managed to pile up in your life. And ri, well, this is the most profound one, separating oneself from the psychological attachment to material objects. It is basically the ultimate tool for filtering our true needs from our toxic wants. I want you to pause for a second and think about your own living space. Why on earth do we stubbornly hold on to accumulated junk in our homes for 10, maybe even 20 years? You know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that tangled box of cables in the back of the closet, clothes that haven't fit since a decade ago, or all those items we bought for a hobby we completely abandoned after 2 weeks. We pile these things up like literal mountains in our living spaces. But this clutter isn't just physical, it's mental weight. It's the physical manifestation of our inability to practice Dan-sha-ri. You know, there's a real irony to all this accumulation, and it's beautifully captured in how our priorities naturally flip as we age. When we're young, we are entirely focused on the addition life. We want a higher salary, more exotic travel, richer foods, and as many locations checked off on our social media profiles as possible. Just more, more, more. But as the source playfully points out, aging kind of forces us into a subtraction life. Suddenly, our goals do a total 180. We're desperately trying to subtract things. We want to lower our blood pressure, reduce our cholesterol, and finally declutter our garages. Life itself just has a funny way of teaching us that we can't carry everything with us, and that peace ultimately requires letting things go. So tying this whole shebang together, from the lilies of the field to Dan-sha-ri, we arrive at the core takeaway of Pastor Hu's reflection. Finding true abundance isn't found at the shopping mall. It's found in these 4 spaces. It's prioritizing a spiritual or internal connection over material hoarding. It's cultivating a deep daily gratitude for simply having a healthy body. It's learning to genuinely appreciate the simple, everyday abilities to eat, drink, and do our work. And finally, it's walking outside and having the eyes to see the profound, effortless beauty in everyday creation, just like those wildflowers. The absolute best part about this journey from excess to abundance, it doesn't require you to buy anything new. In fact, it requires the exact opposite. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. In a world that is utterly obsessed with addition, what is one thing you can subtract today to find true abundance? Maybe it's a physical object, maybe it's a financial anxiety, or maybe it's just the overwhelming need to impress others. Whatever it is, try letting it go. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to break down the ideas that shape our world.